There's this very specific feeling you get when you walk into a house that has just incredible, well-maintained wood floors.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just that they look nice,
Yeah.
it's visceral. It feels substantial,
Yeah.
solid.
It really is the anchor of a home's aesthetic.
Mm.
And from a real estate perspective, it's one of the few things that is just universally loved.
Yeah, you never hear someone say, ugh, what a shame about all this beautiful hardwood. It just doesn't happen.
Never.
Exactly. But here's the reality check, and I think a lot of us have been there. You buy the house, you love the floors, and then, life happens.
Life happens, the dog, the kids.
The kids think the hallway is a drag strip for their plastic cars. You move furniture, and 5, maybe 10 years go by, and that warm glow starts to look a little tired, a little gray.
So you think, okay, no big deal. I'll just get them refinished.
You call for a quote, expecting, I don't know, the price of a nice new sofa.
And instead, you get a number that looks more like the price of a gently used sedan.
Sticker shock is an absolute understatement, and the confusion. One quote for $2,000, another for $6,000, and you have no idea why.
None.
That is exactly why we're here today. We are doing a deep dive into the complete guide to budgeting for wood floor refinishing.
And this isn't just a price list. It's really a roadmap to not getting ripped off.
A crucial distinction.
It is. The source material basically argues that refinishing isn't a cosmetic touch-up, like painting a wall. It's a major construction project happening inside your home.
So the goal is to move you from asking, how much is this, to understanding, what am I actually paying for?
Because those are two very, very different questions.
I love that framing. So the mission today is to decode that industry standard estimate, which is what, around $3 to $5 per square foot.
That's the ballpark, yeah.
We need to figure out where that money goes and how you can spot the difference between a necessary cost and, a contractor just padding the bill.
Precisely. Knowledge here is the only thing that protects your wallet. It's that simple.
Okay, so let's start by unpacking the process. The source makes a big point that refinishing is a meticulous process, not a single action. When I see a quote, I just see refinish floors.
And that's the problem. You have to see the sequence to understand the price tag. You aren't paying someone to just wipe on a magic chemical. It all starts with assessment.
Which, to be honest, sounds like something a contractor would charge for just to walk in the door. Is it really that critical? Can't they just, start sanding?
It's the most critical step for your budget. A pro has to determine the wear level, but more importantly, the thickness of the remaining wood. You have this wear layer.
Right, the wood above the tongue and groove.
Exactly. And if you live in an older house, those floors might have been sanded 3, maybe 4 times over the last century.
So the wood is thinner than it looks?
Way thinner. And if a contractor brings in a heavy-duty drum sander on that, they can punch right through the wood to the nails or the subfloor.
Oh, wow. So you're not refinishing anymore, you're replacing.
Which triples your budget instantly. So assessment prevents a catastrophe. Once that's clear, you move to the heavy lifting, sanding.
This is where they remove the old finish, the scratches, everything.
Right, they smooth the wood back to its raw state.
And from what I read, this isn't just one pass with a machine, is it?
No, and this is where cheap quotes often cut corners. Proper sanding is a progression. You start with a coarse grit, maybe a 36 or 40 grit, to strip everything off.
Okay.
Then you do it again with a medium grit to remove the scratches from that first pass, and then again with a fine grit to polish it.
So if a contractor says they can do it in one go, that's a red flag.
A massive red flag. You'll see every single scratch under the new finish. It'll look terrible.
Okay, so assessment, then this multi-stage sanding.
Yeah.
Then comes the fork in the road, staining.
Right. Staining is optional. It's purely cosmetic to change the color. If you like the natural color of the wood, you can skip this entirely.
And finally, sealing.
The shield. This is the protective layer, usually polyurethane. You cannot skip this. Without a sealer, you just have raw lumber on your floor.
Okay, so let's get to the part everyone is waiting for, the hard numbers. We said $3 to $5 a square foot. How does that break down?
Let's look at the granular data. The biggest chunk, by far, is sanding. You're looking at roughly $1 to maybe $2.50 per square foot, just for that.
That feels steep. That's nearly half the cost just to make dust.
It is, but it has to be. Sanding is the foundation. Think of it like auto body work. If the body work is bumpy, the paint job will look awful.
Okay, that makes sense. If the sanding is bad, the whole floor looks cheap.
Exactly. You are paying for the skill to make an organic material perfectly flat.
Right. Then we have the optional step, staining. What does that add?
If you decide you want that color change, you can expect to add about 50 cents to $1.50 per square foot.
Now, this is a really important tip for everyone listening. If you're on a tight budget, you can instantly shave, what, maybe 20 or 30% off your bill just by skipping the stain.
Absolutely. Staining is purely aesthetic. It adds no structural value. In fact, it adds time and risk. Keeping it natural is cheaper, faster, and safer.
And the sealer.
That's your other non-negotiable. That'll cost between 50 cents and $1 per square foot.
So sanding plus sealing is your base cost? But wait, the guide mentions a variable alert, something about repairs.
Ah, the oops factor.
Yeah.
That $3 to $5 estimate assumes your wood is in decent shape. But what if you pull up a carpet and find a massive pet stain from 1995 that rotted the wood?
Sanding doesn't fix that. I thought we were taking layers off.
Sanding removes a tiny fraction of an inch. It can't fix a deep gouge or rot. Those boards have to be replaced or patched. And that's custom carpentry work.
Which is never included in the base per square foot price.
Never. And this is where budgets usually break. People assume refinishing means fixing everything, but it really just means resurfacing what's there.
Speaking of budgets breaking, there's always that little voice that says, hey, it's just sanding. Why don't I rent a machine and save $3,000?
Ah, yes. The siren song of the DIY project.
The guide frames this as a trade-off. You're trading money for time and risk. Let's talk about the time first. People think I'll knock this out on a Saturday.
A massive underestimate. A professional crew can do a standard house in maybe 3 or 4 days. A DIYer. You're looking at stretching this over several weekends.
So you're living in a construction zone for a month.
Potentially. And you can't walk on the floors while they're drying, so you might be living in your basement or paying for a hotel. The disruption to your life is a real cost.
And then there's the equipment. Are those rental sanders at the hardware store the same thing the pros use?
Not even close. This is a key point the source makes. Pros use industrial-grade machines that are perfectly balanced. Rental equipment is often abused, simpler, and lighter.
And what happens if you use a bad sander?
2 things. First, dust. Industrial machines have huge dedicated vacuums. Rental units. They have a little cloth bag. You will be finding wood dust in your toothbrush bristles for 6 months.
That sounds like a nightmare.
It is. And then there's the finish quality. You risk what are called chatter marks, little waves in the floor from the sander vibrating. Or worse, you can accidentally grind a divot into the wood.
And a pro knows how to avoid this.
A first-timer usually creates a few permanent reminders of their learning curve.
So the cost of DIY isn't just the rental fee. It's your time, the dust, and the risk that you have to hire a pro to fix your mistakes anyway.
Which is the most expensive outcome of all. Fixing a botched sanding job often costs more than just hiring the pro in the first place.
Point taken. I'm calling the pro. But here's where the guide gets really interesting. The hidden costs. The stuff nobody thinks about.
These are the budget assassins.
The first one is furniture.
Seems obvious, but the floor has to be empty. Like empty, empty. Many contractors charge extra to move furniture, and if you have a grand piano or a giant sectional.
That labor cost adds up. And displacement. Even with pros, you can't be there, right?
Right. So you're doing your whole downstairs. Where are you cooking? Are you boarding the dog? If you have to stay in a hotel for 4 nights, that's $1,000 you need to add to the project cost.
Okay, now let's talk about the wood itself. I think most of us assume wood is wood, but the species matters.
A lot. Red oak or white oak, that's the standard. But if you have exotic hardwoods like Brazilian cherry or teak, the price jumps.
Why? Is it just harder to sand?
It is harder, so it burns through more sandpaper. But the bigger issue is chemistry. Exotic woods are often very oily, and that natural oil can repel the finish.
So a standard polyurethane might not cure.
Exactly. Might stay sticky forever or just peel right off. They have to use specialized, more expensive sealers to handle those oils.
What about older floors, like those original pine floors everyone loves?
Historic floors are a double-edged sword. They can be fragile, pine is soft, and like we said, they might be thin from previous sandings. They require delicate handling, which means slower work.
And slower work means higher labor costs.
You got it.
Okay, we need to talk about the finish itself. The guide highlights this dilemma between oil-based and water-based. I always thought oil was the gold standard.
Historically, yes. Oil gives you that rich, warm, amber glow. It's incredibly durable. But there's a price to pay.
The smell.
The VOCs, yeah. The off-gassing is significant. You definitely can't sleep in the house while it's curing. And the curing time is long. You might be off the floor for several days.
And water-based?
Water-based tech has come a long way. It dries very quickly. Sometimes you can walk on it in socks in a few hours. The smell is minimal. It's a huge convenience factor.
But is it as tough?
That's the debate.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that amber glow. It dries clear, so the floor looks lighter, more natural. And durability-wise, the high-end two-component water finishes are incredibly tough. They rival oil. The cheaper stuff won't last as long, though.
So choosing a finish is actually a logistical decision as much as an aesthetic one?
Exactly. If choosing oil means 3 extra nights in a hotel, the cost of that finish just went up by $600. Water-based might be more expensive per gallon, but cheaper overall because you get back home sooner.
That's such a smart way to look at it. Okay, let's pivot to strategy. How do we manage this budget? The guide offers some really tactical tips.
It does. The first one is the contingency fund.
Right. What's the magic number for floors?
10 to 15%. You have to assume something will come up. Maybe a subfloor needs a patch. If you budget down to the last penny, you will be stressed out of your mind.
The second tip is the rule of 3.
Never take the first quote. Get 3. But the key isn't just to pick the lowest number. It's to use them to spot discrepancies.
Right, because if one quote is 2,000 and the others are 4,000, I shouldn't just jump for joy.
Correct. You need to ask why. Is the cheap guy skipping a coat of sealer? Is he using a cheaper finish? You need to compare apples to apples. If a quote is vague, ask for a detailed breakdown.
Now, this next tip I found really fascinating. Timing is money.
This is a great insider tip. The flooring industry has seasons. Everyone wants their floors done in the spring or summer. If you could schedule your project in the off-season, late fall or winter, you might get a better rate.
But there's a catch with winter work.
Yep, always a catch. You have to keep the house heated. If your house is 50 degrees, the polyurethane won't cure properly. So you save on the contractor, but might spend more on the heating bill.
Everything is a trade-off. The final tip was about needs versus wants.
And this goes back to our standing conversation. If your budget is tight, you have to be ruthless. You cannot fix a broken floor with pretty stain. Prioritize the sanding quality and the sealer quality.
So skip the fancy color change if it means you can afford a better sealer.
100%. You can always add rugs later to change the color of the room. You can't easily go back and add more protection to the wood.
And speaking of that, the guide mentions one last thing about future-proofing.
Maintenance. The budget shouldn't end when the contractor drives away. The big secret is the screen and recoat.
What exactly is a screen and recoat?
It's a mini refinish. You don't sand down to the raw wood. You just lightly abrade or screen the top layer of finish and add a fresh coat. It costs a fraction of a full refinish.
Oh, wow. So you skip the heavy, dusty sanding entirely.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you do that every 3 to 5 years, you might never have to do the big, expensive sanding job again for decades.
It's like changing the oil in your car so you don't have to replace the engine.
Perfectly said. You're investing a little bit now to save a huge amount later.
This has been incredibly helpful. I feel like I can actually look at a quote now and see the labor and materials, not just random numbers.
That's the goal. To look at your floor not just as wood, but as a system. A system that needs specific care and financial planning.
A system. I like that. Well, we have unpacked the process, crunched the numbers, and hopefully saved you from a DIY disaster with a runaway sander.
And remember, the dust goes everywhere. If you take anything away from this, respect the dust.
I want to leave you with one final thought. We focus so much on the cost of changing the floor, but what's the cost of keeping it? If you choose the cheaper finish now to save $500, are you just setting yourself up to pay double in 5 years?
It's the classic buy nicer, buy twice scenario.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes the cheapest quote is the most expensive decision you can make. Thanks for listening. Go check those floors. Maybe put a felt pad under your chair right now.
Take care.